Hello everyone, thanks for joining me. Today I'll be talking about the 3 biggest factors in sleep understanding. These are the major players in sleep success from a holistic and responsive point of view. And if you don't understand these, you're really missing out on some game-changing know-how for families. The 3 legs of the sleep stool are development, regulation, and sleep pressure. Stick with me and I'll explain why these are such crucial foundations for a holistic approach to sleep. And if you're excited to hear this, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, then you'll always be the first to know when a new video drops. In case this is the first time you've landed on our channel, I'm Dr. Lyndsey Hookway, a paediatric nurse, health visitor, responsive sleep advocate, author and researcher. With my colleague Emma, I head up the Holistic Sleep Coaching Programme, the most in-depth and evidence-based responsive sleep coach programme in the world, which has so far supported over 500 fabulous coaches who are committed to empowering families with evidence-based sleep support that is biologically and developmentally appropriate and protective of attachment. Coaches like Kim, who finds that regulation in particular is something that is an absolute game changer for her clients. Time and time again, these 3 aspects of sleep support are fundamental in her work and enable her to consistently improve sleep for families while placing a very high value on responsiveness. Because she deeply understands regulation, development, and sleep pressure, she can focus on choosing appropriate strategies for her clients who seek her out thanks to her reputation for achieving effective sleep with an attachment-focused approach. So let's get into it. First of all, development. You have to understand how development impacts sleep. A lot of people will talk about regressions or progressions, but I like to call things what they are. If a change in sleep is caused by developmental changes, let's be specific. Children are works in progress. They're always developing, but certain key developmental stages have a specific impact on sleep. If you want to hear more about this, don't forget to check our earlier video on sleep regressions. The first developmental factor to consider is that sleep needs reduce over time. While this might sound obvious, it's a really fundamental one. People often forget that a 4 or 5-month-old baby will simply need less sleep than a 2-month-old. If the older baby continues having the same napping pattern, they may experience difficulties with daytime sleep or may achieve too much day sleep and you'll pay for it at night. A large study by Parvanen and colleagues in 2020 found that sleep durations decrease consistently over the first 2 years of life. A study by Figueiredo and colleagues in 2016 explored the specific differences in sleep totals by day and night at different ages. They too found that sleep totals decrease with age, but also the proportion of daytime sleep shifts from making up about 50% of the total sleep time at 2 weeks of age to only up to 1/3 of the total sleep time at 3 months. They also found that the total length of time spent continuously asleep gradually and modestly increased between the newborn period and 6 months. In fact, most studies that look at large normal samples, including the Parvanen and Figueiredo studies, find that children continue to wake at night well beyond the first 6 months, including the Heising study, the Brown and Harries study, and the Penestri study. But it's not just total sleep time and night waking. A study by Damasi and colleagues in 2023 explored the relationship between movement and sleep. They begin by generally pointing out that movements during sleep gradually lessen over the first year, but are also associated with acquisition of motor control. For example, you may have noticed that very young infants experience face or head twitches during sleep. This behaviour tends to go away once the child gains greater control of their head. Body and limb twitches are really important as they trigger the nervous system to map limb movements to brain function, which is pretty amazing. These may be essential to sensory motor development. Essentially, their brain may be learning about how all the parts of the body are connected, how they move, and where they are in space. These twitches and small limb movements tend to lessen over the first year. Babies who have just learned to crawl in the first month after that happens have more night waking, more fragmented sleep, more wakefulness at night, and shorter total duration of sleep than more experienced crawlers. This study was looking at the impact of walking. 78 babies who had recently started to walk were assessed with actigraphy devices and found that walking is associated with more fragmented sleep and more movement during sleep. But unlike the pattern that is seen in crawling, the movements during sleep persist for longer. This may be an opportunity to consolidate skills overnight, as the movements are more pronounced during REM sleep, which is a sleep stage associated with consolidating new memories, particularly procedural memories. On a practical level, if a little one is more wriggly and unsettled in the second half of the night, this may be one very clear explanation. Another practical implication is that because the acquisition of walking has a long lead up, sleep disruption may start at the very beginning of getting ready to walk and persist during the acquisition of this skill and beyond as they gain competence and practice with this. Have you noticed that whenever children are learning new skills, growing or changing, they tend to wake up more? Let me know what major developmental milestones you've noticed impacting sleep. The second big factor I wanted to talk about is closely related to development in many ways. It's regulation. Essentially, little ones have very limited abilities to self-regulate. This means to get themselves from a state of stress, anxiety or excitement back to calm. They require a calm adult present to co-regulate them. If you imagine that a child who, let's face it, has pretty immature abilities to problem solve and become calm has an additional thing on their plate, this will lead to more dysregulation. But they don't have any more capacity to self-regulate than they did before. So in essence, this means that they will have a greater need for co-regulation. They will need their parent more during times of dysregulation. It's that hard and that simple. It means that for any reason, whether a child is nervous, anxious, growing, learning, feeling overloaded or overwhelmed, overstimulated or wound up, they may react exhibiting those attachment-driven, proximity-seeking measures. These are behaviours that are designed to get their primary caregiver or trusted favourite person close to them again and help them feel safe. And there's no mystery about how they do this. They call out, cry out, hold their hands out. They ask us to help them. But a dysregulated child won't be able to fall asleep because sleep is a feature of the rest and digest system, not the fight or flight system. As I'm often saying, you can't sleep with your foot on the gas pedal. Essentially, focus on the calm and sleep will follow. People spend far too much time trying to get little ones to go to sleep when actually they should focus on getting them to calm down. And we do that with proximity, not separation. And finally, the third key factor is sleep pressure. Sleep pressure builds with the time we spend awake. It's variable and unique. By this, I mean that each of us has a unique need for sleep. Some of us have low sleep needs, others of us have high sleep needs, but within these broad individual variables, we can have variable sleep needs on a daily basis as well, depending on whether we've exercised, whether we're learning a lot, whether we've had additional sensory or cognitive stimulation, and so on. Have a look at our earlier video on overtiredness if you want to dig into this a little bit more. This is a key reason why we don't believe that children ever need to be taught to fall asleep. Sleep is a biological driver. Have you ever been so tired that it seems impossible to stay awake any longer? Ever fallen asleep reading a book, watching TV, in a lecture, after a large meal? I'm sure you can think of loads of times when sleep has felt almost inevitable. But equally, have you ever felt like you should get an early night, only to find yourself lying awake for ages? Trying to go to sleep with low sleep pressure is really difficult, and it's the same for your little clients as well. This is a major reason why I'm not a fan of sleep schedules or rigid wake windows. They rarely work for everyone, and they don't suit the unique variability or individuality of the population. It's often far more effective to support your clients to pay attention to their child's unique signs of fatigue. This way, they're attempting to facilitate sleep when their child has higher sleep pressure and will find that sleep comes more easily. This holds true if your client is trying to move away from an unsustainable way of supporting their child to fall asleep. Trying to do this when their child isn't really that tired makes the whole thing harder. It's often much easier to facilitate a new way of going to sleep when the child is actually tired. But the plot thickens, doesn't it? Because have you ever been really tired, so tired, and yet you can't fall asleep because you've got a lot on your mind? A big day at work the next day, an interview, you're processing an argument with your partner or your boss, you have a health anxiety. It's not just negative stuff either, is it? Ever struggled to fall asleep before an exciting event? A holiday? A surprise party? When we're tired and dysregulated, the dysregulation usually wins to a point because you can't fall asleep with your foot on the gas pedal. So if there's one thing you take from this video, it's to help your clients focus on the calm rather than fixate on the sleep. Sleep follows calm. It's impossible to cover all the aspects of sleep biology and the complex interrelated factors that impact sleep. But hopefully I've shone a light for you on 3 really important parts of a holistic sleep coaching approach that has successfully supported thousands of families around the world. If you're curious, or you're already a fan of relatable, practical and sustainable sleep support that is responsive and evidence-based, you can book a call with a real human on our team to find out more about our holistic sleep coaching program. And if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget, hit like and subscribe before you go. Until next time.